hello again, everybody. Now, I'm sorry to say the video I recorded last night to complete what I was saying about Neptune on the North Node. Well, I recorded 4, 3 was successful. The 4th one somehow got jammed. I couldn't review the draft, so I need to continue. So let's recap. I was just talking about the incidence of Neptune on the North Node, how it's going to be triggered because of the super conjunction we're having in Pisces at the beginning of April, and the kind of things it symbolized in previous years. So I think we've moved through from, I think it was the 2008 financial crash through 1991, fall of communism, changes in South Africa, definitely the Balkans conflict, very important. And now I was just chatting about World War II and the fact that the CBS and the commercial television stations, CBS and NBC, were given licenses in 1941 in the July. Now, this Neptune North Node conjunction happened on the 7th of July. These licenses were given on the 1st of July, and I said it couldn't have been a coincidence that World War II was coming up and they were going to need mass propaganda. So let's talk. I just wanted to mention again, since the Balkans showed up so many times, and please do watch the videos on Saturn conjunct the North Node, because it's even more interesting actually, but many of the same themes are mentioned. And of course we have to look at both, because we've got the double whammy of Neptune on the North Node, Saturn on the North Node, plus this Mercury and Venus retrograde banging at the same point as well at the end of Pisces, right? So do watch those. But speaking of the Balkans, I was watching some videos on Serbia. Serbia is still a strongly Christian, well, it's Orthodox Christian, nationalist kind of country. And I know a lot of people in Serbia, and they're very strongly pro-Trump. Not saying that Trump's everything we thought he was or could be, but still, you know, when people are pro-Trump, it kind of shows the way they're thinking. And they're still very strong in cultural identity, which leads me to believe that is a country that's going to be targeted in some way. So maybe these nodal connections to Neptune, which of course shadow those events when in Yugoslavia in 91 and when the breakup of Yugoslavia, blah, blah, blah. Maybe that's saying to us that there are going to be other events to destabilize Serbia, destabilize their regime. I mean, we've already seen with Romania, they don't like the candidate. Suddenly the elections are kind of nullified and the candidate lands up with police charges, blah, blah, blah. We've seen with Canada, new puppet Mark Carney effortlessly slips in. Yeah, sure, they're having a election, but it'll probably just be another puppet. So let's have a look. My printer wasn't working either, so I have to read off the phone, but it's probably kind of the same thing anyway. So let's see what they were saying about July. Okay, we were July the 8th, 1941 was when we had this Neptune conjunct the North Node. So we mentioned CBS and NBC. So July the 3rd, Joseph Stalin, in his first address since the German invasion, calls upon the Soviet people to carry out a scorched earth policy and to and resistance till the bitter end. And we know, I mean, it was very bitter. The bitter end. St. Petersburg was a mass slaughter. It was dreadful what happened in Russia to both Germany and Russia. So many lives lost. And I say needless lives on both sides because this was totally unnecessary. You know, the whole narrative of we won the war. Right, we went in the war to stop Hitler invading Poland, but at the end of the war, the Soviet Union invaded the whole of the Eastern Europe, and it was under communism for a long, long time. Was that a win? Anyway, July the 4th was the massacre of the Lviv professors. Polish scientists and writers are murdered by Nazi German troops in the occupied Polish city of Lviv. Interesting, you see, Lviv, now in Ukraine, was in Poland. That's why I say they're fighting over countries in Ukraine, known as a borderland, that have been in 4 different countries over the last 100 years. Now, if Russia continues to advance and does end up kind of taking Odessa or the South Coast, Poland might want to make a claim and move in and take Lviv. Poland does have some intention of taking back Ukrainian territory that they believe is theirs. As you can see, Lviv was one of their cities, right? So there's something in it for Poland here as well in terms of Ukraine. I don't know if I mentioned in my other videos, but do you notice this whole kind of Russia conflict went off the boil once Prigozhin was so-called died in a plane accident and Wagner were no longer involved? One wonders how it's really progressing right now, because it just seems to be rusty tanks shooting each other. One wonders, you know, the theatre of war and all that jazz. What are they trying to tell us? What's really going on there? So I'm going to put up some little screenshots as well to show you that when we hark back through the transits, what's repeatedly coming up, not just with this nodal Neptune connection or the nodal Saturn connection, but every time I've looked at any nodal connections, whether it be to do with Uranus, whatever, Saturn-Neptune conjunction, blah, 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 Saturn-Neptune going into Aries or whatever, we always harking back to conflicts, whether it be the Crimean War or World War II, Operation Barbarossa, that involved Russia, which is why I think this conflict with Russia isn't going away. People talk a lot about Iran. Will there be a conflict with Iran? I say, yes, there could be, but that's not going to be the main event. The main event is Russia. And I don't believe it's to bring Russia down. It's more that Galloway always uses this example, lifting an enormous stone only to drop it on your own foot. I think the EU, NATO particularly, are being lured into a trap. They're being told, we've got to do this to destabilize Russia. Putin's the problem. They almost buying into that, believing that. But what if they exhaust themselves and it's Europe that ends up collapsing NATO? The Western Europe collapses through both net zero and this relentless push to instigate conflict against Russia, that they end up collapsing. And we have this transfer of wealth and power to the East, which I think is the ultimate aim. And we see it echoed in biblical prophecy, which is actually a plan, not a prophecy. July 5th, World War II, Operation Barbarossa, German troops reached the Dnieper. Now we know the Dnieper is the demarcation line. Russia will probably end up with all the territory to the east of the Dnieper, and they'll leave the rest to Ukraine, should they not want to take Odessa, which remains up in the air. I mean, of course, Scott Ritter and George Galloway might tell you that might happen. Okay. British troopship SSS Anselm is torpedoed and sunk by a German submarine in the Atlantic Ocean with a loss of around 250. We also have July the 7th, again an echo to Yugoslavia, because we have an uprising in Serbia. The Communist Party of Yugoslavia raises an uprising against the Nazi occupation beginning, I'm not even going to try this, Zakika Jonanovic Spanik kills 2 gendarmes in the village of Bela Kriva. Sorry, terrible pronunciation. Yugoslavia coming up again. That's the 3rd time. Right, so I'm wondering what's going to be happening in the Balkans. World War II, American forces take over the defense of Iceland. Just felt echoes there of Greenland, Iceland, American forces taking over, echoes there. And there was also a pogrom, the Jedwabne pogrom. Okay, there was also one of these conjunctions on October the 3rd, 1924 at Leo, not as significant. So you see there the themes with Neptune on the North Node, particularly involving conflict in Russia coming out victorious, changes in the regime in Yugoslavia. We see echoes of terrorism, also subversion, propaganda, and misinformation. So I think those are definitely themes that we can already anticipate are going to be continuing. Gives us more confirmation that this whole conflict in Russia is not going away, but it also gives us a couple of other hotspots that we need to watch out for, particularly Iran, Iraq, Yugoslavia, and as I say, South Africa, and a couple of these will also be echoed when I go through Saturn conjunct the North Node. So yeah, okay, let me finish here. I've got another little message for my subscribers, okay, and I'm going to leave that next.